A magic circle suddenly appeared in the ordinary classroom. The male lead wasn't surprised at all. He even transformed into a wry-mouthed warrior. Then, everyone traveled to another world as a group. The familiar environment excited the male lead, because this wasn't his first time in another world. Tall demons with glowing red eyes gradually appeared in the distance. Everyone else turned and ran, but the male lead remained motionless. His childhood friend, Sunset, came before him to block a blow. Unexpectedly, the male lead sent the demon flying with just one finger. He pulled Sunset and escaped. Suddenly, human soldiers appeared and attacked the demons. The battle between the male lead, the human, and the demon should have ended long ago. He found the demon's magic power familiar. Then, the male lead's cavalry acquaintances appeared and told them to retreat to safety. The demons couldn't last 2.5 minutes against them, and were destroyed. Afterwards, they were brought before the king. Right now, the country is at war with the demons, and they, just like 5 years ago, are heroes from another world. 5 years ago, heroes from another world brought peace to this world. Therefore, they believe the protagonist's arrival is no coincidence. The students are in a difficult position. They don't have the strength to fight, but being driven away would also be troublesome. With no other choice, they can only stay here. Then they followed the knights to practice swordsmanship and magic. Shi Yang showed some talent and quickly grasped the basics. The male lead was slacking off secretly, but got caught red-handed. He subconsciously called out Alugia's name. Alugia was displeased he shouldn't address his superior by name. Seeing her reaction, the male lead didn't mind adding, "Mrs." When addressing her, she disliked his behavior and attitude. Just like the hero 5 years ago, if he is honest in his training, he can use stronger methods. The male lead became interested and asked her to try. Aljuga, fulfilling his request, lunged at the male lead with a wooden sword. Unexpectedly, she missed him completely. He even patted her on the butt. From the force of the pat, Aljuga recognized him as the hero from 5 years ago, so she slid down, prostrating herself before him. She had been waiting for a reunion with the male lead. The male lead ultimately couldn't refuse a masochist's request. Ilruka is even more unbelievable. She sensed from the male lead's weight that he was thinner than before. He was frightened that she could even sense that. She explained that she only feels happy and at ease when obeying him. Seeing Ilruka like this, Grain also believed that the male lead was the previous generation's hero. Then the three of them went to the alchemist Thea's workshop. Taya knew the hero had returned even before meeting him. Even though the male lead's appearance had drastically changed, his inner magic remained unchanged. He was happy to see everyone again. The male lead suddenly disappeared after the Great War 5 years ago. He only remembered the final moment when he and his companion Dongjin drew their swords against each other. Then, he was reborn into another world, carrying his memories and magic. Now, he has been summoned back to this world. He believes this war is related to Dongjin. Those demons were all cursed and controlled. Besides Dongjin, no one else should be able to do this. Since the male protagonist is still alive, it's not surprising that Dongjin is also still alive. Grain receives an urgent summons from the king. The king is preparing to declare all-out war on the demons, but he thinks it's inappropriate. The envoy to the demon realm hasn't returned yet. He thinks we need to assess the situation before deciding. But the king and his daughter are both radicals. With the demon realm breaking the treaty, a hero has also been summoned here. She sees this as taking a stand for justice. The king is an ungrateful person. He thinks he shouldn't have listened to the hero's advice and made a peace treaty with the demon realm 5 years ago. The disappearance of the brave men must be because God wants them to unify the world. At this time, Sunset is already able to initially use magic, and just happened to be seen by the male protagonist. He thinks Sunset has magical talent, but Sunset doesn't want to use this power to hurt others. She doesn't want to fight with others, but on the other hand, she can also use her magical talents to protect the hero. At night, the male lead secretly meets with 3 people. Although Gray did everything he could to delay the declaration of war, he ultimately couldn't avoid an all-out war between the 2 races. The male lead, deciding to return as the king of soldiers, attempts to stop the war once again. The 3, as members of the hero's royal guard, want to follow him, but are refused. This time, he will act alone. Given the current situation, they can't just stand by either. If Dongjin is really behind this, we also need to leave them to deal with it. Seeing that he had said so, the 3 of them naturally couldn't refuse. Before setting off, he needed to retrieve his weapon first. Several people stealthily approached the weapon storage point. Aluja barged in directly, leaving Grain to cover the rear. The male protagonists recall their previous dungeon adventure together. Aluja, who always rushed ahead, usually messed things up. Sure enough, an unlucky guard was knocked unconscious by her. The group could only hide him in a box. The four infiltrated the warehouse and successfully found the protagonist's black round sword. The unconscious soldier was also discovered. Grain and Tia went to the castle to delay the start of the battle. As the protagonist left, Xiang chased after him. She didn't understand why he was leaving alone. The protagonist confessed that he was visiting this world for the second time. To stop the war, he needs to gather his past harem, his past companions. Xiang wants to stay by the male lead's side and help, but this journey is too dangerous for her. He doesn't want Xiang to be in danger. Seeing this, Xiang no longer insists. She's accustomed to the male lead's unique gentleness, so she asks him to close his eyes. The male lead blushed, thinking he was going to get a kiss, but she just used wind and fire magic to give him a haircut. This anime's Demon King is ridiculous. To protect peace, she willingly becomes a slave to another. The male lead traveled across the ocean to the demon continent on a leviathan, but he was attacked by a giant squid nearby. Not only did the male lead not help, he seemed to be watching a monster movie. Leviathan blames the male lead for not intervening, resulting in her being covered in ink. Lulu points to the squid nearby, unsure of what to do with it. Leviathan gives up and leaves it to the male lead, so he returns to his old ways and makes fried squid. At this moment, not far behind them is the demon village. Beyond the opposite mountain is the Demon King's castle, Lulu's delivery destination. The male lead happened to be looking for the brooch's owner. Leviathan was surprised that a human would deliver goods to Dessus. She guessed from Lulu's reaction that Lulu didn't know who Dessus was. She gave a preemptive warning. The recipient was the demon lord Dessus. The girl was shocked and instantly petrified. As for the following land route, she didn't intend to continue. The male lead hadn't seen her for 5 years. Unexpectedly, he was still thinking about deepening their feelings. But before he could say anything, he just blew up Leviathan. After 5 years, the first thing he did when they met was to use her as a ship. And the worst part is, he wanted to carry another woman. The male lead felt guilty and didn't know how to explain. Behind him, the young male demon said they were fighting over her. Regardless of the reason, the guy has to apologize first. He wasn't happy, so he stuffed the boy's mouth with squid rings. Unexpectedly, they found them delicious. They hoped he'd make more to take home. Leviathan thought this was fine too. He had plenty of ingredients left over anyway. The villagers in the fishing village were having a headache at this moment, because the giant squid prevented them from going out to sea. The village's stock of dried fish was almost depleted. They were ready to fight to the death. Unexpectedly, the male lead appeared with squid. He even turned it into food. That night, the village held a party to celebrate solving the great crisis. The male lead, as the cook, continuously made fried squid. He conquered the villagers with his skillful knife skills. Brad, the captain of the mountain demon's guard, saw the brightly lit village. He thought humans had landed to burn, kill, and loot. Without a word, he drew his sword and charged towards the village. At this moment, Lulu wanted to talk to Leviathan. She was curious about the relationship between Leviathan and the male protagonist. They both seemed to be very familiar with the Demon King. Leviathan recounted 5 years ago, when she fought with a male protagonist who had crossed into her territory without permission. Later, the male protagonist said he wanted to use her power to end the war, so he forcibly took her away. Leviathan doesn't understand why the hero shouldn't be famous in the human kingdom. Lulu is shocked for the 3rd time. She never expected the male lead to be the legendary hero. That explained why he knows Leviathan and the Demon King. She can't understand why such a big shot would agree to be her bodyguard. Also, sea disasters have decreased since the war. which is a result of her and the male lead's promise to protect the peace of the ocean. Little did she know, the male lead suddenly disappeared for 5 years. Now he's calling her out to be his ship's hand. Although she complains that he doesn't understand women's hearts, she's secretly happy to see him again. Brad the demon suddenly bursts into the village, claiming to protect everyone from harm, but the onlookers treat him like a fool. After the party, Leviathan directly scoops fish from the sea and swallows them whole. Brad apologizes for his previous rudeness. He deduces from the protagonist's weapons and magic, plus the fried squid, that the protagonist is the missing hero. He left the Demon King's castle to seek Leviathan's help. Seeing the protagonist, he sees hope. Brad asks them both to save the Demon King. It turns out the Demon King is about to be forced to marry a man named Tran. If it were true love, it would be fine, but the other party tried to enslave the Demon Lord through a curse. To that end, the man made thorough preparations. Even the Demon Lord couldn't resist it. A month ago, the human kingdom suddenly attacked the demon race. Coastal demon villages were frequently harassed by giant armored soldiers. They even raised the human flag. Although they repelled the enemy, the attacks have become frequent ever since. The messenger sent by the Demon King hasn't returned. Tran deduced that the Demon King didn't want war. He proposed marriage to the Demon King, using the prevention of war as his excuse. The male lead was surprised that such a person existed in this world. As for being number one in the world, the other party was on par with the male lead. Lulu reminded him that this, number one, wasn't about strength. Tran is the world's richest man. Nowadays, almost all merchant ships belong to the Tran family. No matter which side, if they want to win the war, they must get the help of the Chamber of Commerce. The male lead is angry that the Demon King is willing to become a slave just because of this. He questions Brad's competence. Leviathan knows the approximate reason. The Demon King is likely trying to uphold the peace treaty he made with the male lead. The Demon King is probably trying to keep the peace treaty he made with the male lead. Although the Demon Lord's actions are quite corrupt, as a friend, she naturally couldn't ignore it. The two, after a long absence, were traversing the route they had previously used to ambush the Demon Lord's castle, but they encountered a monster attack along the way. Not long ago, Brad said that no one knew the exact time of the wedding, but given the Demon Lord's personality, she would definitely want to complete it as soon as possible. Tran has several powerful subordinates. He hopes the male lead will conserve his magic as much as possible before meeting the Demon King. Leviathan pats their chest in assurance. They'll handle the preliminary work, even on land. Leviathan's strength remains formidable. In a short while, they wiped out the monsters. The male lead has already decided to disrupt this foolish wedding, and to beat up the guy who's trying to steal his woman. He had long suspected that person's identity was questionable, because both countries claimed to have been attacked by giant armored soldiers. But those soldiers didn't belong to either country. He concluded that someone was deliberately plotting to start a war, and then sent suspicious individuals by a hidden mastermind, using cursed artifacts to peddle peace. And this guy named Tran definitely knows something. As they spoke, monsters attacked again. Leviathan killed all the monsters with one move. Now they can have a good time causing chaos. This is definitely the most trustworthy Demon Lord. To uphold her promise with the hero, she was willing to become a human slave to maintain world peace. The Demon Lord fought continuously to protect her demonic race, until she was defeated by the hero 5 years ago. The hero, aiming for a permanent solution, he chose to end the war by taking the Demon Lord as his consort. She even presented a carefully prepared pendant as a token of their love. But the hero disappeared after their final battle 5 years ago. Even though they couldn't meet, the Demon Lord silently vowed to keep her promise to him. 5 years later, the pendant the hero gave her suddenly shattered. A bad feeling arose in the Demon Lord's heart. She asked Brad to take it to Grandpa Lully to have it repaired. Soon after, the demons discovered that humans had launched a military invasion with giant armored soldiers. The Demon King immediately assembled his executives and mobilized the demon army. He also dispatched an envoy to the human kingdom to ascertain the situation. She will protect the promise we made. The sudden war caught the demon soldiers off guard. They believed that as long as they bought time, the Demon King would surely find a solution. But a month later, the envoy still hadn't returned with news. The demon's normal life was nearing its limit, and it was at this moment that the world's richest man, Tran, came to pay his respects. He offered his financial resources to help the demons end the war. In exchange, she would marry the Demon King. The Demon King knew that this so-called marriage was actually enslavement. To this end, Tran had specially prepared a powerful cursed necklace. Even the Demon King, once wearing it, would have no chance of escape. Tran is perverted and believes that the stronger the curse, the stronger the love for the devil. Brad hopes to drive him out of the Demon Lord's castle, but the Demon Lord needs to consider it. Tran is confident that he can wait, but the Demon Lord doesn't have that much time. The Demon Lord is conflicted and can only protect the promise with the hero in this way. Brad suddenly requests an audience, hoping the Demon Lord will not accept this absurd proposal. All the cadres, including him, are prepared to fight to the very last moment. And precisely because of this, the Demon Lord can't let them go to their deaths. She mocked herself, saying that although she is the Demon Lord, she's ultimately just someone who is hopelessly in love. She felt so sad. The hero had said that black suits are best. Now, she has to wear a white wedding dress. Tran's thrilled the Demon King compromised so quickly. This also means the hooded man's efforts to achieve his plan haven't been wasted by lending his strength to Tran. Marrying the Demon King equals gaining the entire Demon Kingdom. He thinks it's time to order the magic soldiers to retreat. Seeing the hooded man refuse leaves Tran puzzled. He thought the other man was doing it for the Demon Kingdom, and that he himself had gained a beautiful Demon King. Logically, the goal has been achieved. Yet, the other party revealed that all of this was merely the Master's task. The Demon Lord, to protect the peace agreement with the male protagonist, went so far as to wear an unsuitable white wedding dress, marrying a human as a slave. The attitudes of the human and demon guests were diametrically opposed. The hooded man had the smug look of someone whose scheme had succeeded. Soon, the Demon Lord appeared in a white wedding dress. Tran impatiently took out his cursed necklace and announced that from this day forward, he was the Demon Lord's master. This fellow had already begun acting like the new Demon Lord, demanding that the demons swear allegiance to him. Then, he had the Demon Lord make a declaration of eternal servitude to him. The Demon Lord was unwilling. She felt like a delicious dish about to be devoured by a pig. If she could just see the hero one last time, it would be worth it. The male protagonist, answering the call, burst through the window. The Demon Lord knew her beloved was coming to save her. A hooded minion nearby tried to intervene. Leviathan fired a water jet, blasting the minion. She commented that the Demon Lord really didn't suit the white wedding dress. Never again in this life. The man in the black cloak appeared and attacked Leviathan with shadow magic. Even flying in the air, she couldn't dodge it. Then, several shadow spikes appeared behind the enemy, aimed at Leviathan. In a critical moment, the male lead's blade arrives, shattering all the shadow spears. The hooded man, caught off guard, is punched away by the male lead from behind. The man, a Demon King, plans to teach a lesson to the person who made his harem cry. Unexpectedly, the man shows no fear when facing the hero, even wanting to capture him and give him to his master. It turns out he was just boasting. He knew he was no match for the protagonist. His top priority was to return and report to his master. Everyone present was absurd. They just watched as the other party broke through the wall and escaped. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. The Demon King eagerly embraced the protagonist from behind. He complained aggrievedly about being abandoned by the protagonist. The protagonist skillfully calmed the Demon King's mood with a head pat. Leviathan warned, "There are still defeated minions here." Soon, these figures dissipated before their eyes. They were merely puppets created by curses. Including the cursed necklace, the male protagonist sensed Fuyu's presence from them. The Demon King also wanted to help the male protagonist capture Fuyu. Unfortunately, the male protagonist still needed to go to the Orcish Kingdom. If he get the Beast King's help, dealing with Dongjin will be much easier. Leviathan is unhappy about being ridden again by the male lead. She hasn't had a moment's rest since yesterday. Then Lully and Brad arrive at the Demon King's castle. Lully has the male lead deliver the repaired pendant. The Demon King is happy to have the precious item back, so the male lead puts the love token on the Demon King for the second time. The Demon Lord is happy. She only feels alive when the male lead is around. This little brat has been destined to be alone since childhood. The girl wanted to invite him to play together, but she was met with the male lead's merciless rejection. Initially, the male lead gave her the impression of a coldly terrifying child, but as childhood sweethearts, their feelings deepened over time. As they spent more time together, The female lead gradually fell for his gentle nature. She also wanted to get into the same prestigious school as the male lead. She wanted to ask for his opinion, but he poured cold water on her. Lowering your standards for your first choice is also fine. There's no need to force yourself to go to the same school as him. Even if you end up in an unsuitable school, life will definitely be tough from now on. She felt unhappy inside. She secretly signed up for extra tutoring classes on her own, but unfortunately, it didn't help her grades much. She was so upset. Even the small-time hoodlums could see that her mock exam results weren't good. The hoodlum advised her to give up. It's easier to just give up on things that are beyond your capabilities. What good is studying? Going clubbing with my brother is much more fun. The male lead stepped in and chased away the thugs. He agreed with what those people said. With her current situation, she wouldn't pass the exam even if she tried her best. But even if she's ridiculed for being unrealistic, she still wants to go to school with the male lead. He admired her determination. He promised to teach her until the very end. The heroine was very happy. She just wanted to be with the male lead forever. Even after coming to this other world, that hasn't changed. To catch up to the male lead's back, she proactively sought out the male lead's first companion in this other world. Elruka always wanted to see the same scenery as the male lead. The heroine felt the same way. Therefore, she hopes to have special training for herself. Elruka looked at the peaceful world before her. She knew that the male lead was working hard to protect the world again, and they were also making final preparations for the upcoming war. The female lead was determined to stay by the male lead's side, but her power was still insufficient to cope with the crisis. Therefore, she needed to become stronger. Seeing the female lead say this, Elruka held nothing back. Both sides stopped when they reached a point. She was very pleased with the protagonist's improvement in strength. Although these visitors from other worlds each possessed extraordinary abilities, she was the most special one. But even so, she, who wanted to stay by the male lead's side, was currently lacking an important thing. To help the heroine become stronger, Elruka brings her to the sewers for final training. A crocodile monster appears in the water. The heroine fires a fireball and hits it accurately, but she hasn't been happy for long. The flames around the monster are already extinguished. The heroine uses her wand to block its gaping maw. The crocodile extends its claws, leaving several bloody scratches on the heroine's arm. The heroine counterattacks, using a fireball to strike the crocodile's abdomen and knock it down. Seeing the crocodile severely injured, she hesitates to kill it. But although she has grown stronger, her magic control is almost on par with Elka's. But in war, her mercy towards enemies will ultimately lead to her companion's deaths. What she lacks is the resolve to take a life. Then Elka steps in and kills the crocodile. Afterwards, Tia comes to treat the heroine's wounds. She said she already considered the female lead a companion, because the way the male lead looked at her was exactly the same as when he looked at them. Therefore, she also understood what Elka said to her. Elka also considered her a companion. That's why she was so strict. Tia wondered why. Even though the male lead faced all sorts of danger, she still wanted to stay by his side no matter what. The heroine explains that she's received a lot of help from the heroes since childhood. Therefore, this time she also wants to contribute her strength to him. With the heroine's current abilities, it's entirely possible for her to protect herself on the battlefield. But if she wants to stay by the hero's side, she will inevitably encounter extremely dangerous enemies sooner or later. But Tia understands that forcing this awareness onto the heroine is wrong. The male lead certainly wouldn't want this. But no matter what, only the female lead herself can decide this matter. All outsiders can do is respect the decision she's made. Grain also comes to comfort the female lead. Hesitation about taking a life is perfectly normal, even if it's to help someone important. The reason he chose to fight, it's just that he'd rather choose to trample on others' privacy than watch the person in front of him suffer. Everyone's enlightenment is different. Therefore, this answer must be found by oneself. He imagines the male lead also hopes to hear an answer that suits her style. The female lead is greatly inspired. She and Elruka return to the sewers. This time, she has made up her mind. The monster in the water surfaced precisely, as if it were respawning. This time, the heroine fired a stronger fireball, defeating the monster with one blow. Both the power and accuracy were impeccable. Elka approved of the heroine's actions, but she pointed out that the monster wasn't dead. She had only temporarily incapacitated. Her resolve remained absolute. She would never take a life. Elka sighed in resignation. The female lead is exactly like the male lead, but this level of understanding can't be achieved with half-baked power. She needs to become stronger. This hero is unbelievable. Using a Leviathan as a vehicle in the sea is one thing, but on land, she still finds it inconvenient. If she could use teleportation magic, they wouldn't have to take a carriage to the Orcish kingdom. Leviathan is dissatisfied. This world is inferior to others. Even for a sea goddess, it's troublesome to use. Not only does it require a year of preparation, but it also consumes immense magical power. Suddenly, the carriage screeched to a halt. Two female demons climbed into the carriage. The male lead's face showed surprise. The red-haired demon is Arise, the crybaby he once adventured with. Alize unilaterally claims to be the protagonist's top disciple. After all, the protagonist previously taught her combat techniques hand-in-hand, all night long. The girl traveling with them is named Amel. She says she's Alize's sister. The protagonist doesn't remember her having a sister. She explains that it's a long story. Because they lived together for a while, it became like this. Alize wants to know where the protagonist went for 5 years after abandoning her. Everyone else was also very curious. The male lead explained the whole story. He's currently running around trying to stop Toma's plan. Because it's his second time in another world, his appearance has changed drastically. The male lead is truly amazing. He has Leviathan by his side, and has invited Arise to go to the Beastman continent. Just like 5 years ago, he's helping out. Although Arise really wants to agree, but right now, she's involved in a troublesome incident. It all started because of Amel. After the male lead disappeared 5 years ago, she's been taking on exorcism jobs to train. Not long ago, she went to Amel's village to exorcise the dragon. During that time, the village had arranged for her to stay at Amel's house. According to Amel, this was originally her brother's house. She was taken home by her brother 2 years ago, but her brother hasn't returned since the dragon appeared. She's alone again, but Amel is used to being alone. Alize likes this village. She's tired of traveling, to be honest. She hopes to stay here a while longer after the mission is over. Amel is happy. If she doesn't mind, Alize is willing to be her older sister. The male lead confirms whether her brother was killed by the dragon. Alize explains that whenever the dragon attacks the village, villagers go missing. What is suspicious is that even if he was attacked by a dragon, there should be signs of a struggle. However, the missing villagers left no trace whatsoever. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Alize thought defeating the dragon would solve everything, so she severed the barrier, luring the evil dragon to appear. She sent Amelie home to hide. Before leaving, Amelie showed her the butterfly in her hand. She said she was very good at catching things, and that she really wanted to introduce Alize to her brother soon. Every time this evil dragon appeared, villagers went missing. Alize received a commission to hunt down the dragon. She quickly cornered the evil dragon, but soon she lost track of it. When she returned to the village, she found that the rest of the villagers had disappeared. Only Amel was left, crouching in a corner, spared. To take Amel to a nearby town, she unexpectedly boarded the male lead's carriage. The male lead and Leviathan haven't experienced this, but they still agreed to help. Leviathan guesses that everyone in the village has turned into zombies. A wicked necromancer is actually hiding among the villagers. The reason for their disappearance is a type of monster called an air zombie. Even the dragon is actually a zombie dragon. The male lead is speechless. He doesn't believe her. Then she thought it might be the work of a siren, because siren songs have the power to lure men into the sea. Although the village is in the mountains, Leviathan won't give up. Maybe there are sirens who like to live in the mountains. Amel thought that was impossible. because sea monsters all have a unique sin, although Leviathan had absolutely no sin. The male protagonist guessed that the dragon, like Leviathan, was also a higher order species. Therefore, even disguised among humans, it's hard to detect them. But if such beings truly exist, why didn't the dragon simply eliminate Arise? After Arise sends Amel to town, she plans to return to the village to search for clues again. What the male protagonist couldn't understand was why the dragon repeatedly attacked that village. Leviathan thought it was either treating the villagers as prey, or they are attracted by magic because human magic will attract monsters. If someone in the village used powerful magic, then monsters might have been drawn to it. The final question is why the villagers disappeared. People can't just vanish into thin air, of course. That means they've all gone somewhere else. The protagonist concludes that someone used teleportation magic. Therefore, it wasn't a dragon attack that caused the villagers to disappear. Instead, the villagers' disappearance attracted the dragon attack. Alize was astonished. Magic requires a caster. The male protagonist meant that someone was secretly lurking near the village. The male protagonist decided to ask the person themselves. That person is Amel. To use teleportation magic, it takes at least a year, and Amel happened to arrive in the village 2 years ago. The reason he believes she's the mastermind is because when Leviathan mentioned the siren just now, Amel was able to perceive Leviathan's true identity. Amel, seeing her cover blown, stopped pretending. The reason she could see through Leviathan's identity is because she has considerable knowledge of monsters. Then Amel transformed into a dragon and attacked everyone. Leviathan buffed the protagonist's weapon. The male lead uses his great sword to shatter the dragon's flames. Alize seizes the opportunity, thrusting her sword into the dragon's head, killing it. Afterwards, Alize stays behind to clean up, not joining the male lead on his adventure. She returns to Amel's house. Amel, who should be dead, reappears. It turns out the dragon was merely her familiar. The missing villagers have been turned into puppets by her, all for the sake of war. Amel never existed. The one standing here now is the monster user Melua. That name was given to her by the male protagonist, searching for Fusen. In the simple and honest Beastmen kingdom, everyone helps each other. The residents all know that the white cat is alone caring for her seriously ill younger sister. Therefore, they all generously offer their help. Waiting for her at home is her seriously ill, bedridden younger sister, a black cat. All the money my sister earned to prolong my life was spent on expensive potions. The male lead and Leviathan arrived at the Orcish kingdom. He hoped to pay extra to get the ship captain to leave immediately, but the ship captain refused. The male lead had no choice but to rely on Leviathan, but he angered Leviathan to get here as quickly as possible. She had been swimming non-stop for 3 days and nights, and the male lead exploits her labor so much. He awkwardly apologizes. At this point, the only one he can ask for help is Leviathan. He inadvertently pushes her too hard. Unexpectedly, Leviathan loves this kind of thing. She's easily appeased with a head pat. She agrees that as long as she rests tonight and replenishes her magic, she can work harder and swim more tomorrow. The boat owner ignores the atmosphere. He might leave tomorrow too. So the two decided to rest at a nearby inn first. At this time, the white cat sought out Miss Black Dog to deliver a commission. The reward was an expensive medicine to treat her sister. The cat thanked Miss Black Dog for her care. The other felt sorry seeing how she cared for her sister. Normal people would cheer her on. She wondered if Miss Black Dog had any brothers or sisters. The other party didn't answer. Instead, she informed that the next commission would be troublesome. Then she took out portraits of the male protagonist and the sea god. The white cat knew this was a contract for assassination. As long as she completed this task, she would receive enough payment to last her a lifetime. She wouldn't have to worry about her sister's medical expenses. Coincidentally, the male protagonist and Leviathan also came to stay at this inn. Miss Black Dog pretended nothing was wrong, casually brushing past the cat, recognizing them as her targets. That night, she found her sister had a poor appetite due to her illness, and the necklace her sister was wearing was the same style as the cursed necklace Dungeon wanted to put on the Demon King. After the male lead and the sea god fell asleep, the white cat came to the inn again. She really couldn't refuse because of her sister's medical expenses. Before starting the mission, she wanted to call Black Dog elder sister. After all, It wasn't just the medicine. Even their survival was all thanks to Black Dog's constant care. She wanted to wait until she received her reward, then find a quiet place to live happily with her sister and Miss Black Dog. She agreed to let White Cat call her elder sister, but the mission must be completed successfully. The White Cat, full of energy, lurked on the second floor. Miss Black Dog, on the other hand, gazed at the stars at a 45-degree angle. I really miss being called sister. He encountered some kids lighting firecrackers in the street. The male lead's response was a swift slap. In the middle of the night, while the male lead and the sea god slept soundly, the White Cat assassin revealed 10 sharp claws, attempting an assassination. But she fell victim to the male lead's illusion magic. The male lead suddenly appeared behind her and kicked her out of the second window. The male lead thought the White Cat was Dongjin's subordinate, but the White Cat didn't know who Dongjin was. She confessed that she had to kill him for certain reasons. Then the White Cat's limbs transformed into a beast form, but she cast a fire spell. The male lead got angry, saying it was dangerous to set fire in the street, so he slapped the White Cat, sending it flying. The male protagonist discovered that the White Cat was tainted with cursed magic. This means Dong's accomplice is nearby. When the White Cat woke up, it was already back home. His sister thought he had found her unconscious on the roadside. That's why she brought her back. The male protagonist has a general understanding of the situation. He stated that his sister wasn't sick. With the male lead's actions, a strong curse emanated from his sister. The White Cat begged him for help, promising to grant his every wish. The male lead promised to cure the Black Cat. He summoned his trump card, a great sword capable of consuming curses. As the blade opened and closed, the curse was gradually consumed. The Black Dog secretly appeared, attempting to ambush the male protagonist, but the White Cat stepped forward and blocked the attack. At this moment, the male protagonist couldn't stop. Leviathan summoned a water jet, temporarily repelling her. The Black Dog's kunai were useless against her water stream. The Black Dog couldn't understand why the god of the ocean would help humans. Because of love, Leviathan didn't bother to explain. Fight if you want to, no need for nonsense. The Black Dog believed that on land, even the sea god couldn't exert their full power. She then used the shadow clone technique to surround the sea god. Unfortunately, wherever she was, it became the sea. Faced with Leviathan's attack, the Black Dog was completely defenseless. Leviathan promised to spare her life if she honestly revealed Dongjin's purpose. She would be spared. However, she didn't care about her own life or death. With an injured body, the cat asked, why would she do such a thing? The Black Dog ripped the mask off. Sister is a name that makes her nauseous. A useless cat, who can't even complete her mission, doesn't deserve to call her sister. She confessed that Dongjin's true goal is to become a god, and to annihilate all living things in this world. And she is one of Dongjin's loyal subordinates. Then, Black Dog took out a black orb and crushed it, successfully escaping. At this time, the male protagonist also finished and appeared. The Black Cat sister's curse has been lifted, and she has recovered her health. He sighed. Dongjin is still so crazy, but if he wants to destroy the world, they certainly won't agree. After dawn, the male protagonist and Leviathan set sail to meet the Beast King. Along the way, however, they encountered the Catgirl sisters who were waiting. The sisters hoped to fight alongside the male protagonist. If you want to enter the capital during this period, it would be more convenient to have works with you. They also want to talk to Black Dog's sister again. Seeing Leviathan didn't refuse, the male lead readily agreed to take them along. The man who only had eyes for Pang, who was abandoned by the male lead, and thus completely fell into the path of evil. He wants to erase all other existences, just to live a life of two with the male lead. 10 years ago, the male lead and Toma were summoned to another world. The male lead was unhappy about being arbitrarily made a hero by the king. He also didn't want to be burdened with their expectations. But since he learned that this world has a demon king and monsters, he thought his top priority was to become stronger. Toma was level-headed. He hated war. He also didn't want to fight to the death for strangers in this world. Although the male protagonist agrees with his statement, but that doesn't mean he can do nothing. As a fellow citizen of the Earth, the male protagonist and Dongjin agreed that as long as they can survive, One day, they can return to my original world. He hopes to prevent the war with Dongma. This way they don't have to fight to the death for strangers. As a chosen hero, you can only know if you can do it by trying. He promised to protect Dongjin. After some time, the male lead decided to travel the world to stop the war. He wanted to see the world with his own eyes. Dongjin, out of fear, had to stay in the capital. He promised to strive to become stronger to stop the war. They agreed to meet again after both becoming excellent heroes. In the following time, Dongjin became a knight of the kingdom. He was also awarded the title of Silver Brave. He believed that one day, he would be able to end the war. His followers firmly believed this. They were willing to sacrifice their lives for it. In one battle, Dongjin led his men to break through the evil temple. He showed no mercy to his enemies. To end the war, he did not accept surrender. As he left, a mysterious woman's seductive voice echoed in his mind. The source of the voice was the strange necklace in the statue's hand behind him. She knew Dongjin didn't belong to this world. She could also see his envy as a weakling, his despair and disgust for the world, including his true, hidden desires. The woman's seductive voice offered to help him fulfill his wishes. Dongjin's eyes only held Panghu. The other party took advantage of his momentary hesitation, so he reached out to grab the necklace. In the blink of an eye, his followers were all dead by his hand. The herald delivered an urgent message. Due to the ongoing peace negotiations between nations, the kingdom orders a complete cessation of hostilities. A peace delegation is about to pass through this battlefield. As soon as the words were spoken, a carriage appeared in the distance. He sensed the protagonist's magic from inside the carriage. The protagonist already had other companions by his side at this moment. After all these years, the protagonist merely glanced at him, and then turned away. It's truly a bit absurd. After his 2-year absence, the protagonist successfully brought peace to the world. Dongjin, who traveled with him, also found a way back. However, the protagonist forgot their 2-year-old agreement. At this moment, he didn't want to leave this world where he had finally ended the war with such difficulty. Next, he wanted to go and find scenery he had never seen before. His leisurely life in another world with a harem has just begun. Dongjin felt betrayed. The male lead had forgotten their agreement from 2 years ago, and wished him well, hoping he would live a good life after returning. Dongjin couldn't accept being abandoned by the male lead a second time. He obsessively believed that only he could be by the male lead's side. His despair at the world and the necklace's influence caused him to turn evil on the spot. To return to the male lead to how he was 2 years ago, he prepared to destroy everything that stood in their way. Dongjin had completely lost his mind. He believed the male lead was the one who wasn't clear-headed, and he saw everyone else as people who were deceiving the male lead. He believed the world didn't need anyone but himself and the male lead. When everyone else arrived, both of them had vanished. The male lead was beaten so badly he was reincarnated. Dongjin returned to the temple where he had discovered the necklace. He wept, realizing that none of his wishes had come true. He had planned to wait for death alone right there. But then, other images appeared inside the gem. In a hidden corner of the world, inhumane experiments were taking place. The test subjects were forced to inject unknown liquids. Some were subjected to intense electroshock therapy. Miss Black Dog's sisters all died from organ transplants. At this moment, everyone felt utterly hopeless about the world. Dongjin discovered he wasn't alone after all. Then, Dongjin destroyed the entire experimental field. He invited everyone to follow him to destroy this world of only despair together. After all, they were all people rejected by this world. Now, Dongjin met the male lead again. This time, he would stop at nothing to possess the male lead. His injuries have now completely healed. It takes 10 years of brain hemorrhage to write such a stupid plot. The former hero, to monopolize the male lead, secretly instigated a war between humans and demons. The Demon King, knowing the cause, was forced to fight. The Human King and his daughter aspired to world domination, refusing to heed any advice, and determined to wage war. To that end, they imported heroes from other worlds as super soldiers. The protagonist's companion is helpless, but can't say it outright, or they'll definitely be labeled a spy. They split up to act with the super soldier. Taking advantage of the battle between the two armies, They plan to launch a surprise attack from behind the demon forces. Taya, who knows the details, warns the hero's super soldier not to chase fleeing or injured enemies. For self-preservation, they can only eliminate the enemy before being killed. Some girls are afraid they won't be able to adapt to combat. They're helpless against the demon's attacks. Shiyang helps her defeat the demons. Soon, the demon army is defeated by the human soldiers. Now, someone is preparing to finish off the defenseless demons. Shiyang, with her compassionate heart, speaks out to stop him. The boy is unhappy about showing mercy now. He might be the one dying next. Even so, she couldn't accept the extermination of the wounded. 5 magic circles suddenly appeared in the sky. A magical puppet fell from each magic circle, exactly like the puppets that chased them during their first encounter. Then, the male lead's apprentice, Arise, also appeared and began slaughtering the human soldiers. But after they killed the magical puppets, they discovered that human beings were inside the puppets' bodies. With Melua's appearance, they finally recognized the red-haired swordsman as the protagonist's disciple, Alize, who is now forcibly turned into a puppet by Melua. Melua intends to turn them all into puppets, so they can be together forever. ELCA is furious about this and attacks Melua first. Alize, controlled by magic, fights against her. This woman always cuts herself before summoning monsters. The blood spilled on the ground contains potent magic. The liquid gradually rises and transforms into 4 different monsters, but they appear powerful, yet are actually weak. The great serpent is pinned to the ground by Elruka's ice shards. The golem is also killed by Grain with 1 move. Melua isn't fazed at all. She continues to control the golem puppets to gang up on Grain. Taya stepped forward and used a powerful attack, eliminating the wyvern and the golem at once. The last remaining insected monster was defeated by Shiyang. Melua was jealous that they were neither modified nor drugged, yet possessed such great strength. Her jealousy caused her to become distraught, so she ordered Alize to eliminate them completely. Unexpectedly, Grain incapacitated her with a single blow. Thus, all of Melua's toys were defeated, and her own strength was simply negligible. Her wicked life ended with a single blow piercing her heart. This was her retribution for toying with human lives. Unexpectedly, Melua stood up again. It was because her body had long undergone cruel modifications. She even had an extra heart. She was a product created as a weapon. If it weren't for Dongjin's intervention, she and her companions had already died on the experimental table. To destroy this unbearable world, she willingly fought to the bitter end for Dongjin. So she sacrificed her life to break the limits, summoning her trump card monster, the Chimera. Then Melua leaped onto the lion's head in the middle. Next will be her moment to shine. Then the Chimera's 3 heads simultaneously unleashed their breath attacks. Taya and Shiyang worked together to release a barrier, barely holding it back. No one noticed a glowing butterfly flying by. At this moment, the 3 from the other world had no strength left to fight. The butterfly flew right in front of Melua. Just as she was distracted, she was backstabbed by Alize, who had regained consciousness. When Melua died, Chimera also turned into an empty shell. Although Alize was still in a deep coma from her severe injuries, she had survived thanks to a healing spell. Before everyone could relax, new enemies arrived. At this point, everyone had lost the strength to fight again. After much hesitation, Shiyang decided to act herself. She ordered everyone to retreat to a safe rear position. Although the enemy before her was strong, she had no choice but to fight. Moreover, she believed that if the male lead were here, he would certainly be the first to step forward, and everyone knows that. At this moment, compared to them, Shiyang has more stamina to deal with the enemy. All they have to do is believe in their companions. The man suddenly looked behind him. Everyone also sensed a familiar presence. At this moment, the male protagonist finally returned from the Orc Kingdom. The handsome guy always makes his entrance at the most crucial moment. Their long-awaited reunion with the male lead excited the childhood sweetheart, who immediately rushed forward to hug him, and even showed him her learning progress. One dared to teach, and the other dared to learn. It's a pity that Elruka alone is enough for a masochist. The male lead told everyone to stand back. The suddenly appearing cloaked man was left for him to deal with. He recognized the man from the magic emanating from him. He was the one who had fought him in the Demon King's castle. Before the fight, the protagonist still worried about his companions. The man didn't understand why he worried about the weak. In his eyes, others should be no different from ants. The man was fixated on the idea that stronger beings only show mercy to the weak to highlight their superiority. The protagonist didn't care about superiority. He only cares about the important people. The man is a lunatic. He views the male protagonist's self-serving actions as a privilege of the strong. He believes such a world deserves destruction. Meanwhile, the black dog is also wantonly slaughtering soldiers, until the white cat and black cat sisters arrive. They believe the black dog's sister is not a bad person. Therefore, they hope to find a way to resolve the conflict together with her. Black dog disdains playing stupid sister games with them. On the contrary, it only disgusts her. Seeing this, the cat sisters can only fight. Black dog is truly a bitch. If they consider themselves older sisters, then they should obediently go die. The black cat steps forward to protect her sisters. No matter who the opponent is, she will show no mercy. Soon, both sisters are injured, but Black Dog also suffered greatly under the sisters' combo attack. They thought the battle was over, but unexpectedly, Black Dog suddenly mutated. Several tentacles wrapped around Black Cat. Thick, powerful arms grew from Black Dog's back. White Cat was also slapped 2.5 meters away. She hated seeing sisters' affectionate display right in front of her, because this would be their burial place. Clearly have the upper hand. The black dog still can't think of sacrificing her lifespan to strengthen herself. It's outrageous. A black arm suddenly emerged from the ground and hit the white cat. She mocked the sisterly bond as useless. It's just a curse that has no power and is useless. White cat retorted that she was the only one who would think so. Black dog gets angry with shame and controls several big black hands to chase her. The white cat jumped up in the direction of the black cat. The moment the sisters touch each other, they transform into Cruella Catgirl. The black dog was about to taunt, but was slapped in the face. The sister came behind her so quickly that she couldn't react. Black dog wants to be tough, but her timid ears revealed that she was afraid. Countless arms appeared behind her back, but in the face of the Catgirl sister's whirlwind attack, all her arms were destroyed, leaving only her original 4 large, black ones. Black dog was unwilling to lose here. Otherwise, she would be letting down her tragically deceased sister. Faced with her desperate attack, the sisters didn't hesitate to completely defeat her, thus ending her tragic and wicked life. This is a man whose body is as hard as steel. Soldier swords and spears couldn't pierce his defenses at all. Roya, the Beast King's daughter, pushed through the crowd and punched him, but the punch did 0 damage to him, while hurting her considerably. He hoped that this level of Meow Meow punch wasn't Roya's full power, and this steel body of his was a product of human creation, causing him to suffer all sorts of torturous experiments since childhood. But as a result of misfortune, he gained great power. He was also saved by Dongjin. Luya is unhappy. She thinks it's excessive that they're willing to destroy the world just for Dongjin. But the bald man doesn't think he's wrong. In this world, the strong do whatever they want, just like the person who modified my body. Luca from the Orc Kingdom is the same. Luya gets angry and suddenly attacks. She thought the bald man was pitiful, but now she realizes he's not even right in the head. As the daughter of the Beast King, she would never allow anyone to make fun of the pride of the orcs. The bald man doesn't need anyone's pity either. His ability isn't just this steel body. He can freely control this body. He can even change its size and shape at will. Luya couldn't hold on much longer under the barrage of steel ball. The bald man thought she was dead, so he left without looking back. Unexpectedly, Luya struggled to her feet again. Compared to death, protecting her precious horse's pride was far more important. Luya risked her life to unlock another genetic lock. She approached the bald man, facing a hail of steel balls. He'd heard of the Beast King bloodline's ability to burn their life force to die with their enemy. Seeing this, the bald man intended to use his own steel-like body to see who was tougher, him or Luya. Unexpectedly, under Luya's fist, cracks immediately appeared on his pectoral muscles. The bald man was dishonorable, letting countless spikes erupt from his stomach, piercing him through. Luya, however, went berserk, shattering all the spikes. Finally, I punched through his body. However, before he died, The bald man actually used healing magic on Luoya. To have met Luoya, this honest fool, in the end, made him very happy. Luoya didn't understand why he followed Dongjin. He asked Luoya back, "Who would want to get close to a monster like me?" The protagonist's battle continues. The man knew he couldn't defeat the protagonist with melee weapons, so he used a life-sacrificing technique to enhance his strength. This is his peak state. The protagonist swung his blade, but couldn't cut through the armor, because this armor absorbs all energy, including the hero's weapon. He was then knocked away by the man's punch. Seeing this, the male protagonist unleashed his ultimate move. Powerful red magic emanated from him. With a sweep of his hand, he unleashed a dimensional slash. Although it shattered the armor, the man still escaped unharmed. The male protagonist urged him to surrender, but the man refused. He was created solely for war. Rather than clinging to life, he preferred to fight the world to the death. If Eren really got a dong, I imagine he wouldn't be any happier. Leviathan, seeing that the Demon King was unharmed, thought this war might finally turn. Unexpectedly, the mastermind, Dongjin, reappeared in the Demon King's castle after 2 millennia. As long as he's still around, the war will never end. To have the male lead all to himself, he will do everything to retaliate against anyone clinging to the male lead. By the time the male lead arrives at the Demon King's castle, the Demon King and Leviathan are already prisoners. Dongjin is jealous that the male lead cares about other women, but considering they're about to die, he chooses to forgive them. The male lead draws his sword in anger. At this point, he and Dongjin have nothing left to say. Dongjin doesn't care. He's waiting for the world to be just the two of them. You can say as much as you want then. After their underwhelming battle, they began a magic power contest. After Dongjin was knocked away by the male lead, the sword in his hand transformed into a light spear, which he slammed towards the male lead. The male lead knocked the light spear away, piercing the ceiling. Even the sky cracked. After the warm-up, Dongjin decided to show his true skills, but it was only an increase in the number of light spears. The male lead uses a move that completely cancels out the opponent's attack. Dongjin uses the same technique on the male lead. He thinks the male lead is weakened, and his reactions are slow. Then the two clash again. Anyone who's seen the fight will definitely laugh. In a single exchange, Dongjin's weapon is knocked away. The male lead also drops his greatsword. He uses a personality correction punch on Dongjin. Dongjin, feeling invigorated, decides to accelerate the battle's pace. The holy sword, which had flown away, returns to Dongjin's hand. Then, absurdly, it transforms into a large handgun. A single shot from it can pierce through a mountain. If left unchecked, the world will collapse within 2.5 days. The male protagonist quickly closes in, delivering a flying kick that sends him soaring into the air. Dongjin counterattacks repeatedly, but fails to hit the male protagonist. With no other choice, the handgun transforms into a Gatling gun again. The male protagonist summons his holy sword, Gluttony. It devours all the Gatling gun bullets. Then he strikes a pose and charges up. Using a two-sword style, he unleashes 2 slashes of energy. By this time, the male protagonist's companion has arrived. Seeing his gaze shift away from him again, Dongjin is filled with jealousy. He recalled their reunion 5 years ago, with the male lead was like this. In his anger, Dongjin went berserk. He realized that wasn't Dongjin's power. Then Dongjin sacrificed his life to gain a pair of small wings. To prevent the world from falling into despair, he decided to destroy the world. When unconventional weapons appeared in the other world, even the hero could only dodge frantically. Dongjin, unscrupulously, opened fire on his rival. The male lead had no choice but to use the holy sword to confront him head-on. However, one shot still slipped through and hit the Demon King's castle. The harem worked together to maintain the barrier, barely managing to withstand the attack. Then it was the male lead's turn to counterattack with a blade of energy. Dongjin dodged the first blade of energy, but then lost sight of the male lead. In a direct confrontation, Dongjin was ultimately no match for the male lead. A slideshow of the past flashed through his mind. He wasn't willing to lose like this. After a sudden burst of power, a giant cannon appeared in the sky. Even the protagonist couldn't avoid the cannon's attack. He fell towards the Demon King's castle. Dongjin was pleased. Finally, the protagonist was his. Unexpectedly, the protagonist stood up again. Although Dongjin had become stronger, he had lost his original intention. Therefore, no matter how powerful he is, he could never be his own opponent. The male lead unleashes his spatial magic. He cuts off the connection between Dongjin and the cannon. He then wields the devouring holy sword and goes all out. Dongjin is distraught and doesn't want to die alone, because the male lead promised to protect him. That's why he tried so hard to become strong enough to stand beside the male lead. Only when facing death did Dongjin remember he just wanted to stay by the male lead's side. After an unknown amount of time, Dongjin's cursed gem shattered into pieces. He also reopened his big, expressive eyes. The male lead never intended to kill him. He only wanted him to regain consciousness. Therefore, he risked trying to consume only the curse on him. He still remembered his promise to protect Dongjin, but he demanded that Dongjin spend the rest of his life atoning for his mistakes. Dongjin's punishment was decided. He needed to use all his magic to cast a teleportation spell, sending all the male lead's classmates back to their original world. So Dongjin's magic is a one-time consumable. Having used up his magic, he's just an ordinary person. If Dongjin wished, he could also go back and start over. Dongjin sent all the classmates away, but he decided to stay in this world, because this is where he needs to atone. He will also travel extensively, seeing the world with his own eyes, just like the male lead did before. The male lead, however, said goodbye to his companions, and chose to go on his honeymoon with his childhood sweetheart. Although Aruka felt sad to part with the male lead, she's perfectly content just being the hero's sword and chair.